Look at Oyo Nyimba. On the 16th of April, he celebrated his birthday, making 29 years. Now, he was born in 1992, the same year that I was born in. I know it feels like I want to have a connection with Oyo Nyimba, but that's the truth. He was born in the same year as I. So he's making 29, and of course I'll be making 29 in October, blowing my own trumpet. But Oyo Nyimba is, according to a magazine called This is Africa, the youngest king to reign in the world. Now, he is known as one of the kings who started reigning at a very young age. Now, who is Oyo Nyimba? Let's start from the fact that King Oyo Nyimba, Kabamba Iguru Rukidi of Toro Kingdom in Western Uganda, is the youngest ruling monarch, who is now 29 years old. He was born on April 16th, 1992 to King Patrick David Matthew Kaboyo Olimi and Queen Best Kemigisha Kaboyo. The king on Saturday, the 16th of September, celebrated his birthday, just like I told you. Now, the 25-year-old and 12th king of Toro at that time initially ruled with the help of regents and advisors until the age of 18, when he became the sole decision maker. His mother, Queen Best Kemigisha, who also lives in the palace and works closely with the king, helped when he was being ruled with regents and advisors to help him at the age of 15 until the age of 18, when he officially became the king. Now, King Oyo ascended to the throne at 3.5 years old on September 12, 1995, following the death of his father, Patrick David Matthew Ramuhocha Kaboyo Olimi, on August 26, 1995. Now, King Oyo's ascension to power at a tender age made history for a lot of people. He made it into the Guinness Book of World Records as the world's youngest ruling monarch. King Oyo is the third born in a family of 3 children. And the reason why neither of those two became kings is that, of course, you know, the African culture, or the culture of monarchy and rules and royals and kings, is that if the family has a, how do they call it, heir, if they have a heir, that word is complicated, an heir. If they have an heir, then that means that that particular boy will be the one who will be the king, regardless of how young he is and regardless of how old his sisters are. And that's exactly what happened to Oyo. So his 2 sisters, a Princess Ruth and Semere Komuntale and Princess Celia Komuchea, who died of leukemia at St. George's Hospital in southwest London in 1997 at the age of 4, leaving only 2 children. King Oyo attended preschool in United Kingdom before returning to Uganda, where he attended Aga Khan Primary School and Kabira International School. At 21 years old, King Oyo graduated with a bachelor's degree in business management at Winchester University in Hampshire, United Kingdom. He now lives in Palace Patch on a Hill in Fort Portal district, and he also has a palace in Kampala. Of course, that is right here in Buziga, Mugendaji, and that is where his other palace is. And among other duties, he oversees a cabinet that includes the Prime Minister, Board of Regents, and councilmen. Well, that is the little bit that we had about King Oyo, and the fact that we thought we should bring him to you and explain to you exactly who he is, when he became the king, and why he is in the Guinness World of Records as the youngest king to reign in the world. Look at that. Well, King Oyo has been known for, when his mates were playing, unfortunately, King Oyo had to be in the kingdom learning about ruling and learning about the monarchy and learning about the fact that he is going to be the king. While his mates are out partying and having fun, he was supposed to have controlled fun given that he was the king of Toro. Now, all those details, if you want, you will learn, and if you want to know, you will know. Now, the moment you enter Fort Portal City, you see the Pink Palace from 1,000 miles, and it is standing proud on a city. We know that the Libyan president was in Uganda, and when he was here, Fort Portal was the first place that he had gone to. There were rumors that him and the Queen Mother had a very strong friendship and relationship that we have no confirmation about, and they're saying that he played a very big role in the life of King Oyo. I hope you've learned a thing or two from who King Oyo is, and your history lesson has been served. Let's come back to the conversation that I would like to involve you in. And the conversation, of course, is about the fact that UN has slapped travel restriction sanctions on Ugandan government officials whom they say have practiced gross human rights violations on Ugandans. Now, the report that we're seeing right here is that even when US did that, Uganda scoffed at the fact that UN had a blanket travel ban on the Ugandan government officials. Now, they're relating the issues to the chaos that happened, the riots that happened that saw over 58 people lose their lives. Like I told you earlier, the reports are different. Some people say 54, some people say 58 people lost their lives during the riots. Of course, government came up and said there was supposed to be a compensation for the people who lost their lives. And the question was, how were these people going to be compensated? Because the government released a report saying 22 of these people were rioters, while the rest were the ones who were killed by stray bullets. And people asked, how did you ascertain the truth that most of these people were rioters and they were not part of the people who were killed by stray bullets? Now, the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, said he is as a representative in the US, and he said that a continued downward trajectory for the country's democracy and respect for human rights as recognized and projected by Ugandan constitution. He says opposition candidates were routinely harassed, arrested and held legally without charge, and Ugandan security forces were responsible for the deaths and injuries of dozens of innocent bystanders and opposition supporters, as well as violence against journalists that occurred before, during and after the elections. And that was a statement released by Anthony Blinken. He also put it on his Twitter account and on his tweet, which we'll be showing you very soon, on the statement that the US released on the blanket ban on government officials. They, however, have not released the names of the people that have been banned by US to travel to the US. Now, remember, there's a time that the US did the same. This is not the first time that the US has banned travel for government officials to the US. There's also a time when it came to the fact that the Facebook shut down a number of accounts of government officials, and they also shut down a number of accounts on their accounts on Twitter and Instagram, and Museveni came back and shut down Facebook. Till now, Facebook is not back. Now, Senate of Foreign Relations Committee says, I welcome the new visa restrictions on those depriving Ugandans of their democratic rights. It's time to get tough with the Museveni regimes. The US must stand firm in its commitment to defend human, civil and political rights and multi-democracy in Uganda throughout the region. Now, Secretary Anthony Blinken says that these are the consequences for interfering in the democratic process. Starting today, we're imposing visa restrictions on those involved in undermining democracy in Uganda. Now, there are other responses that Ugandans had to this particular tweet. And when we look at Linda Chambade, she says, thank you for taking the lead on Uganda. Museveni has gotten away with genocide inside and outside of Uganda for decades, including in Luwero, and all those details that you see. The comments are not for STV and for the people that you're seeing. There's Perfume Guy who said it started by deporting back their families, those in Canada, America and Europe, and we need to suffer together. Now, there's another one called People Power, which of course is a personal account that says, if international communities accept what's going on in Uganda, human rights abuses, abductions, civilians tried in court-martials, murders by state, it's going to be normalized by African dictators, thus killing democracy throughout Africa. So serious action is needed now. And then there's another one whereby the government of Uganda now had a tweet, and that was the Fono Pondo who released that tweet in explaining how Ugandan government officials felt about the sanction that was slapped against them. Now, in response to the United States Country Report on Human Rights Practices in Uganda, the government of Uganda had the opportunity to study the report and they responded to it. Now, that letter that you're seeing right there is the response to the letter that was sent by the US. And the letter, of course, explains that the government of Uganda has had the opportunity to study the report and the report that was released, and they say that the concerns set by US are mere allegations and their reports that were organized from a hearsay. Remember that the US had around 50 observers that they sent into Uganda. And they had asked for Uganda to let these people observe the elections. The Electoral Commission denied them, these people, to come and observe the elections and only gave them a small number. That pissed off the US ambassadorial decision, and it was taken that US ambassadors or the US committee that was supposed to observe the elections would actually not do it, and they left the country and went. Now, the government in Uganda are saying that all these things that are being talked about are hearsay because, first of all, the US were not here to observe the elections. So how did they get this information? The other thing they say is that the allegations are not true, because when you look at the opposition leaders such as Amriat Oboy and Robert Chagulanyi, the concern was that they were going against the COVID-19 pandemic guidelines that were put in place. President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni himself said that he did not hold any rallies. So why is it that there are people in the opposition who held rallies, and when they were held accountable, the world is now screaming at their faces and saying what they did was wrong? But why is it that the world did not come out to say that the people who did not follow the COVID-19 pandemic rules and guidelines that were put in place are the ones who are in wrong? The government also went ahead and said that they regret the fact that the November 18th riots happened, and they regret the number of people who were killed. However, the people who were abducted and the people who were arrested are the people who perpetrated the November 18th riots, and they're only being held accountable. Now, they also noted the attack on the Capitol in the US, and they said that when the attack on the Capitol happened, the US put up soldiers that were up to 22,000 to guard the US Capitol building, and they said that those who were responsible were arrested. Now, Uganda equated what is happening in the country to what happened in the US, and they said the US has no right to judge them, yet they were in the same position recently. Now, they call upon the US to further their investigations before releasing such a report, and they say these reports that were based on hearsay. Now, the other thing that the government said was, I mean, we don't really mind. This whole thing does not scare us. Why would we even want to go to the US? Now, our numbers are on the screen, and I would like for you to tell us what is it you think about the US slap on the sanction that was put on these different people that are government officials that the US says were part of contravening human rights, not only of opposition candidates, but also of journalists, and abducting and arresting people. Sam Kutesa came in last week and said that these were not abductions, these were arrests. They did not abduct anyone. They legally arrested people. But the question is, why were numberless drones used? Our numbers are on the screens. That's 0709 990 099. The people who are saying that US needs to mind its own business and get away from what Uganda is doing. Uganda gains its independence and US needs to respect that. And that's the same thing the government is saying. They're saying the only way Uganda and US can have mutual understanding and mutual friendship is when US respects the independent decisions that Ugandans make. Museveni said that the Western world needs to keep away from the internal operations in Uganda. And there are other citizens who are in agreement with President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. And the question we are asking today is, what is your view on the fact that US slapped a ban on the travel of some of the Ugandan officials who they say were part and parcel of this particular chaos that happened in Kampala on November 18th, the one that happened in the Human Rights Commission office when Robert Kyagulanyi was taking a list of the gross human rights violations that were committed by the government of Uganda, and also the arrests and abductions of the number of people and the failure to bring the NUP candidates that were arrested to court, or even for them to be given bail. Now, our numbers are 0709 990 099, 0799 noti msanvu, noti mwenda, mwenda noti mwenda. Mtukubire simu, mtugambe ndowooza yammwe ku the topic of discussion, whereby tubuuza ogamba chi ku sanction that the government of the US has slapped on Ugandan officials who they say have been part and parcel of the human rights violations in Uganda. Now, Ofono Opondo, the executive director of Uganda Media Center and the government's communications clearing house, scoffed at the visa restrictions as blackmail and sulking of the Western powers because the people they supported in the elections did not win. One of the accusations that President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni came out with bluntly is that Robert Kyagulanyi is being supported by homosexuals and he's also being supported by the Western power. During one of the interviews that he had with BBC, this is exactly the words that President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni used, and he said that the Western powers were fully supporting Robert Kyagulanyi. If you're to remember, during the elections, a number of NGOs and CBOs had their accounts frozen. A very good morning. Hello? You're live on STV. I'm sure Dawn will be increasing the volume really soon for us to be able to speak to you and for you to tell us your views. A very good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. My name is Latifa. What is your name?
STV.
Yes, you're live on STV, the first show.
Kati omulamo gw'oliko olowooza suubira nti abasajja balina ssente nnyingi abayinza tekijja bakosa bajja kubeeramu babeeremu muno era bongera otekivuganya tebasaba n'abasajja balina kulesa tebafaayo bambala bulungi ne bayiiya n'emitima gyabwe ate n'ekirala nze kinuma tubeegomba nnyo naye si balungi bakwegomba tubalaba bamotoka za bbeeyi bambala bulungi banyiiya n'emitima
Kati gwolowooza you're sanctioned to bikako maaso just for the sake of it.
Kabire naye ensi eri mu kati.
Olinange sebo? Hello? Oh, I've lost that call. And of course, he was saying that these people have a lot of money. And if they want to go abroad, they would still do it regardless of the sanctions. But it's not the first time that we've seen the US impose travel ban sanctions on Ugandans. A very good morning. Hello? Olikues TV?
Okay,
yes, talk to me. Your names and where you're calling from.
Ebintu ebiri mu ggwanga muno
Genda maaso.
byo byakusabira Katonda yekka abaana baliwo bonaabona kwe tulina tulinga batali mu nsi yaffe onoonsonyiwa kwogera bwino.
Well, you've gone off quite quickly. A lot of people are saying that these sanctions don't seem to be real, and it's not the type of sanctions that will make these officials in Uganda have remorse towards what they did. A very good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, your names and where you're calling from.
Again, I'm calling from Boto.
Yes, please. You get an anger. Talk to me.
Yeah, so my quick comment on this situation is that why does the government of Uganda always be on the defensive? Because you realize when these things were happening, the government failed to own up. Kidnaps were happening all over the country. We saw all media reports. We saw parents crying for their children who were abducted. But the government always kept silent and always was on the defensive, saying that these things are not happening. Now the development partners are pointing them out. That's when they are really, this never happened. So I really see our government just taking us for fools. They want to keep us in the dark, and they want to continue committing these things when no one is watching. I welcome the move by the U.S. government to put sanctions on these people. I think it will bring sense to some of the government officials and those who are in their offices. Thank you.
U.S. sanctions will help.
Yeah, I think they will help.
Okay. Thank you very much for your view. Well, there you go. Most people are saying that they welcome this sanction, and they're saying that it is worthy happening. And Rebecca Kadaga is one of those people who are quite vocal when it comes to the violations that were done by the government during the elections. And Rebecca Kadaga said, I've called upon government to act with restraint and not violate human rights. A very good morning.
Salam alaikum, Latika.
Wanjisebo?
Salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi. Your names and where you're calling from. Don't you increase the volume a little bit more for me to be able to
Hello,
listen to you?
are you getting me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, I think on my side, those people are coming with their intentions. They have their intentions to our country. Naye tebatulumirirwangako Latifa. Abantu abo babeera n'ebigendererwa lwaki balumirwa. Kati bwe sokola b'amawanga gonna aga Africa, Uganda yokka yeriko obuzibu obwo obwa mu nsi yonna, ne mu America omwabwe mwennyini mubaddemu obuzibu. Abantu ne bafa abawerako. Naye bo lwaki batulumirirwa nnyo? Waliwo ekigendererwa. First of all, those people are dirty. Okitegeera ekyo, ebintu byabwe bakola baba n'ebigendererwa, babako n'ebintu ebagala okuleeta mu ggwanga, naye bwe bigaana okuyitamu, kati bo basigala bakola ki? Banyigiriza bunyigiriza. Naye weewaawo gavumenti ebeeramu n'obuzibu, naye tebaleme kiteeka nnyo ku mwanjo nti ate Uganda y'eri obubi ennyo. Babako n'ebigendererwa, bwe bamala okwonoona nga bagenda mu maaso n'ebigendererwa byabwe. But they are nothing. Thank you, Latifa.
Well, I hear you. Thank you so much. Well, your view is the U.S. seems to have a selfish interest in Uganda. And you're saying that at this time, why is it that they're interested in the politics of Uganda? How many countries in the world are facing similar issues? And why is it that they're taking keen interest in Uganda? Is it the oil that we have in the country? Well, that is your view. Call us right now and tell us exactly what your view is about the U.S. sanctions on Uganda. Like I told you earlier, they're differing views. Some people are saying that the U.S. is taking keen interest in Ugandan politics for a reason, just like government officials have said, that all the U.S. is doing is sulking over the fact that their people who they wanted to win did not win in the elections, while others are saying that it is good for the US to slap sanctions on the Ugandan government officials because they need to learn a lesson. Ofono Opondo says, I really don't care. We don't want to know. I mean, why should we travel to the US anyway? We're happy in Uganda and there's no need for us to travel to the US. Like I said earlier, this is not the first time a ban has happened before, and Museveni himself scoffed at the threats of another ban. Now, as I was telling you earlier, Rebecca Kadaga said, I have called upon government to act with restraint and not to violate human rights. It is very painful for one's country to be indicted at or in an international forum. And of course, this comes as her response to the letter that was sent by the US that was, of course, sanctioning the government officials in Uganda. And the responses, of course, that are here are very many. We'll read some of them in regard to this topic that we're discussing as I'm waiting for your calls, for you to call me and tell me your views about this particular topic that we are talking about. Our numbers are on the screen, and the question is, what do you think about this sanction? One, do you think it will help? Two, do you think that this sanction is worthy? And three, do you think it is right for the US to meddle in the business of Ugandans and Uganda as a country? Now, if we see some of the comments, Class Monitor says, everywhere in the world there are peaceful protests that are ongoing, and the protests are right. And all they're saying is that these people that were abducted need to be released to the public, and the ones who were arrested need to be given bail, as is their right. And they're also saying that the gross human rights violations and those who perpetrated the crime need to be arrested. Now, there's also another view here which says, it was right under your watch when SFC defiled the house you preside. And a very good morning.
Hello.
Yes. Kale nawe gye balekosebwa. Endowooza yo ku mulamwa ya lwaleero.
Kirungi nnyo ng'ate batamu
A bit louder, sebo. Yogerako n'amaanyi nkuwulirize bulungi. Well, I can't hear you proper, but what I heard you saying is kirungi nnyo ekintu US kyekoze on Ugandan government officials, and they deserve to be stopped from entering or going out of Uganda to the US, since they used to spending government money in the US, or spending taxpayers' money in the US. Now that they have been sanctioned, they'll stay in Uganda with us. And other people are saying, no, it's not right. Why is US meddling in the business of Ugandans? We'll receive a few more calls as we almost come to the end of the show, and as I'm reading comments on this particular topic. Now, the tweet Rebecca Kadaga stated on the fact that she has also called upon government. A very good morning. Hello. Okay, as you keep on calling, well, the tweet that Rebecca Kadaga gave, there were a number of concerns and responses to that particular tweet that Rebecca Kadaga gave, and people had, of course, their comments on this particular issue. And the information that we have, according to different people, on this topic of discussion, of course, is that why arrest peaceful demonstrators? It is within their rights. And these people, of course, are speaking on other issues of the different sections of the fact that during the very peaceful protests that happened recently in Kampala, there was the arrest of these people, and they're saying, why arrest people who are protesting peacefully? Let's have a few more callers, and then we'll continue with the topic. A very good morning.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes, I can get you clearly your names and where you're calling from.
Hello.
Hello, Sebo nkuwuliriza. Amanya go ne gy'okubidde.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi. How are you? Yogera.
Hello. Yogera ko national. Hello.
Sebo, yogera nange.
Hello.
I can hear you perfectly clearly, Sebo. Nkuwuliriza yogera nange ndowooza yo.
Yate ndowooza nti kati gavumenti erumira abantu wawe.
I lost that caller at exactly 7:37. There is an information that I have received on my desk, and I'm trying to confirm that information as I speak, and hopefully I can be able to confirm it before the end of this show. And according to the information that we've received, is that Segrinya Muhammad, who had gone for treatment in Nairobi, Kenya, is not fine, is totally not okay. And we're still trying to confirm this particular information of the alleged death of Segrinya Muhammad, who allegedly has passed away in Nairobi, Kenya. Like I said earlier, it's just a report that has landed on my desk right now, and my producers will try and ascertain this information before we leave this studio, and we'll be able to bring you that information, as of course we are discussing the sanctions that were slapped against Ugandan officials in Uganda. Now, the report, like I said earlier, that we have received as we're speaking right now is that Segrinya Muhammad had gone for treatment and he's not doing well. And they say that Segrinya Muhammad is being prayed for, and they hope that he gets better. But these reports are reports that we still don't have a lot of confirmation on, and we'll be bringing you the details as we continue. And if it is true, we'll be bringing you that particular detail. Remember, I told you earlier that, see, there's a lot of information that will be coming your way on social media platforms. Some information will be wrong. And this is what we're going to do on the first show. We'll be bringing you the myths that are on social media platforms. And then we'll correct those myths for you to know whether they are true or not. And the problem with these myths is that they lead to things such as the November 18th saga that just happened. If you were to remember, on November 18th, we remember that 25 people lost their lives. And where did that come from? It came from the fact that there were reports on social media that Robert Chagulanyi was stabbed. And that is what led to the riot. And some reports had said Robert Chagulanyi was actually murdered in prison as he was arrested. People went crazy. The country went awash with chaos, and everybody was demanding for the release of Robert Chagulanyi. And they were saying, if it's true that Robert Chagulanyi is actually not dead and is alive, bring him to us and release him from prison so we can know. And that is what led to the November 18th chaos. We also know that among the issues that have led to the chaos is also the report that some of the people that were arrested that are now in Machindie barracks or in the military court or court martial were hurt and they were being tortured. Now, all those reports came on social media, and on the first show, we tried our best to demystify these reports and ensure that we get the right information. Now, the other report that has come on, as we right now will look at it as a report that we have no confirmations about, is the death of Segrinya Muhammad. However, the last time we heard about him is that he was in prison. Now, those are myths, like I said earlier, and myths that we will ensure to try and correct right here on the show. And the reason why I brought it to your attention is the fact that this information is spreading on social media. Someone is spreading this information of the death of Segrinya Muhammad on social media, and we're trying our best to demystify that, and we'll be bringing you this information as it develops right here on the first show. Now, I'd like to end this particular show on this note, that we will have the face-to-face session that will come and discuss this particular rumor that is being spread on all social media platforms. And if it is not true, we need to cut it before it spreads further and causes chaos. But if it is true, face-to-face will definitely bring you the details to this report to ensure that you get the right reports and not the wrong reports that are being circulated on social media and on internet.